Okay. Test. Mal gucken. Ein bisschen rein, um die Waffe zu verbessern.
Sure feels good to get away from my desk. Now, where's a good spot for a nap?
Hier. Oh ja, die brauche ich. Perfekt. Heute sind die perfekten mal da.
How's it going, people? Jack here with another reaction, and imagine my bewilderment when I launched YouTube this morning only to get this
Victory's
shown
almost
to
ours.
me. A title and thumbnail from
nice
one of my
catch.
favorite YouTube channels stating that Germany is over. Not ominous at all. Now, this is from Kurskasat, the channel that we have solicited to check some of the best space as...
Yeah, you need a... What is it? What is it? Is it another Paimon?
as well as bombastic mega project videos on this platform. They do that a lot. But this time, of course, they are talking about Germany. And as far as I...
Hey, let's go.
Victory is almost ours. What is it? What is it? Is it another Paimon?
Läuft so gut gerade, kann sein, dass ich gleich vom Blitz getroffen werde, weil es ja gerade stürmisches Wetter hier. Das Spiel hat ja so ein bisschen harte Zelda-Regeln. Wenn du zu lange an einer Stelle stehst, trifft dich irgendwann mal der Blitz.
Steady now. It's the... Wow, Paimon's stomach is rumbling already.
Den Fisch brauche ich nicht. Den.
You've got it. You got... Whew, that was a tough fight. Steady now. It's the... Wow, Paimon's stomach is rumbling on...
Das mal von vorne versuchen. Und unter Limitierung, dass der nicht so viel zieht. Da müsste es gehen.
Weapons need regular maintenance. Take good care of them, and they'll take care of you when it matters most.
Das jetzt so klein machen. Müsste gehen.
On me! Yeah!
Geht doch.
How's it going, people? Jack here with another reaction, and imagine my bewilderment when I launched YouTube this morning only to get this shown to me. A title and thumbnail from one of my favorite YouTube channels stating that Germany is over. Not ominous at all. Now, this is from Kurskusat, the channel that we have solicited to check some of the best space as well as bombastic mega project videos on this platform. They do that a lot. But this time, of course, they are talking about Germany. And as far as I can imagine, this has to either do with the financial state of the country or declining birth rates. We had something similar last year with South Korea, where, incredibly ironic, we got to understand that with time, North Korea could quite literally overtake them if only they played the long game. Now, declining birth rates are a normal thing, I would say, that is coming as a consequence of a plethora of factors, but unlike how some have tried to make it sound as if it's a conspiracy that's being pushed of like anti-natalism, it is not. Because for many people, it doesn't make much sense because of the somewhat polarization that some tend to see across the world, right? Mostly in the United States, but it is still prevalent just about everywhere you go that you can both be yoppie and yeehaw at the same time, right? You can have these kind of like stereotypically liberal views of wanting to have universal health care, have great pension funds, make sure that the people actually have universities, make sure that our environment is good, while at the same time yearning to have a family, move to the countryside, have a farm, be like me with my partner, have the expectation that I will be the main provider as far as I'm able to, because that makes me feel good and that makes her feel secured. And when it comes to such things as having children, we had our first child in our 20s, and very soon we're going to be breaking that dreaded figure of like 1.5 children in Nordic countries. But how can you even get to have this expectation when the world feels like it's going under? But that's just my preamble. Let us hear what it is that the In the Nutshell channel has to say. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel, and let's get into this one.
Germany will soon crash into the consequences of a fertility crisis made much worse by the mismanagement of the boomer generation. The demographic collapse tearing up the generational contract may soon destroy one of Germany's greatest achievements, its welfare state. Millennials, Gen Z and younger are left with a huge mess they somehow need to sort while they're outvoted by the grey bloc making the decisions for them. What happened?
What is it?
Oh,
What
yeah.
is it? Is it another Paimon?
It cannot be overstated how often it happens that we have young, highly educated young folks who, through the system that had been made available to us of actually going to university and not suffering from insane student loans, actually know what we are talking about when we enter the fields of politics. They still have the grey bloc, which I will assume is a boomer for the most part, voting us out and not even taking into consideration some of the options that we're coming up with, because hey, guess what, we are inheriting this mess, and no amount of years of expertise is going to be enough if your only plan is to make sure that you enrich yourself and just let us have to solve the problem afterwards. Because if that is the mentality that I would say that some of the politicians in charge tend to have, well, that will trickle down at worst, so that everybody is going to think like that. Like, who cares about their surroundings? Let me enrich myself so that the problem isn't solved, but that it doesn't affect me. The yodeling.
Collapse.
What?
Germany was among the first countries to industrialize, and so its fertility rates dropped early in the 20th century. But for 55 years, they've been below replacement, at 1.4 children per woman in 2025.
I really would like to talk very deeply about the history of Germany if I had much knowledge about its financial aspects, but unfortunately I am super rusty in that. It's been a while since I looked that up, with the one exception of knowing some stuff about the pension system in Germany, because I had some friends living there and there was like like this report from 2024 that we looked into some time ago. But beside that, I would know Germany's economy has of course been plagued by control from either the Allies or the Soviet post-World War II. Was it from the Morgenthau Plan or the Marshall Plan? It wasn't only until the 1970s where they then experienced the freedom of free market capitalism with of course some government oversight there to experience what the rest of the Western world had. It is true, like Ludwig and Thunder! I'm not the person to tell you a story about him, but I have wanted to do some research on this person because it explains how it is that Germany actually got industrialized and thrives this quickly.
Compared to South Korea, this sounds almost amazing, but it still means population collapse. If fertility stays at 1.4, then 100 Germans will have 70 kids. When those grow up, they'll have 49 kids, who'll then have 34 kids, who'll have 24. A 76% drop within 4 generations. Many people think there are too many humans anyway, so what's the big deal?
Again, let's repeat that overpopulation is not a real thing. It was a sham. Paul Ehrlich, who wrote The Population Bomb, quite literally did not know what the fuck he was talking about. While one can argue that he may have taken some inspiration from the likes of Thomas Malthus from England, right, during its Industrial Revolution, and as he argued at the time that because of the absolutely abhorrent conditions that a lot of children were being raised to, as well as just families as a whole, that there would not be enough resources to feed them all and take care of them. Perhaps he might have had good reasons to make the estimation that he made, but still, the fear-mongering that was set across the world through that very book, those ideas drawn from that book, led to the massive myth of overpopulation. The same thing that led the likes of China to instill such things as the one-child policy. And yes, I know the argument is likely going to be like, hey, isn't that correct though, to actually take care of one child instead of too many? Sure, but that's not what we're arguing about here. We're arguing about the fact that we actually don't get to have enough children and why we no longer are incentivized to do so.
At the same time, people started living much, much longer. So we have a fatal mix of way more grannies and way fewer babies.
Yeah.
The real crisis German millennials, Gen Z and younger will have to live through is the massive shift in population composition and the transition period. In 2026, Germany is already one of the oldest countries in the world, with a median age of over 45. Almost 2 in 5 Germans are over 50, almost 1 in 4 is older than 65.
Holy shit.
Only 1 in 8 is a child under 14. Despite its industrial production declining, suffocating bureaucracy, and little economic growth, Germany's system is still chugging along, and it remains one of the richest countries.
Wow,
The country-
I remember some years ago, Germany was ranked as number 4 in terms of how strong its economy was on the world
You've
scale.
got it.
As it declined.
What is it? What is it?
I hope not.
Country
Is
still
it
has a
another
big
Paimon?
population and a big workforce, along with generous social benefits and pension payouts. But soon, the reality of demographics and boomer mismanagement will hit Germany like a freight train. Population crash means that a society and culture loses more than just people. The systems and countries we've built can't just be downscaled. Things stop working.
Oh, nice catch.
Young Germans are screwed. Old ones too. By 2036, 13 million German baby boomers will retire. This big bulge here. But because they didn't have nearly enough kids, way fewer younger people will replace them. In 2030 alone, there might be millions of jobs that will be impossible to fill. Fewer people working means fewer taxes and resources for the state. Also, services will decline, waiting times will increase for everything from your bags at the airport to doctor's appointments. But the much more urgent issue is retirees. Germany has a pay-as-you-go pension system, which means that about 20% of today's salaries is directly paid out to pensioners.
Yeah. That's the thing. Actually, I think I have it saved somewhere. Yeah, here it is. The financial burden of pension in Europe. A cross-country comparison. This is the thing from 2024 that I talked about earlier. I checked it with one of my friends where in the first figure 1, can I just search for that? Figure 1, just there you go, where you see the comparisons of where the different countries are weighing the importance of their pension system and where it lies strongly. So these, oh god, I hate this word. Bavarian first pillar, so i.e. where the taxes are taken from the health system is strengthened by the income tax is largest in Denmark, for example, and the Netherlands, and where Norway kind of lies in somewhat of a similar situation, whereas Finland and Deutschland lies below. And I think that the figure said that about 30% of Germany's expansion relies on income tax. Yeah, not only contribution, but also tax revenues have a significant role in financing pensions, either through the state subsidies or by covering cost on pension for unpaid periods. So the level of minimum pension benefits varies considerably, which may explain the difference in the share of tax revenue in an overall pension benefits provision. In Denmark, Finland, Norway and Sweden, a resident-based minimum pension, so the old age and disability and survivors and so on, are financed from general taxation. And in the Netherlands, the minimum wage base and income-tested disability benefits for young disabled persons, Vajong, that's a fun name, is financed solely through general taxation. Now, Kurzgesagt have those sources, so always check them out, which is a great thing, so that you can fact check whether or not what they're saying is actually true. But this one is something that from 2024 kind of supports this argument of this massive payout.
This sort of worked in the 1960s when there were 5 working Germans for every retiree. But in 2024, this ratio is down to about 2.5. In the 2030s, it will get closer to 2 workers for 1 pensioner. And about 10 years after retirement, people tend to get really sick and cause the vast majority of healthcare costs. The math ain't mathing, and it actually never really did. Already in the 1970s, governments began to subsidize the pension funds with tax revenue, pushing the problem into the future, as has more or less every single government since then.
Right.
Well, the future is today.
So close. Stay
In 2025, the German federal government spent roughly a quarter of its annual tax revenues to fix holes in the pension system, on top of the working population's payments. Let's say that again. 1 in 4 German tax euros is used to pay out pensions today. More than on education, research, infrastructure, and defense combined. The wealth of the nation is redistributed from the young and the working to the old and retired. And as the boomers retire, this will only get worse. It's money that could be spent on things that help the young and the working part of the population, like
Yeah, shut up and take what money?
incentives to start a family, lower taxes, free childcare, cheap loans to buy homes, investments in education, infrastructure, or clean energy. There are so many things that would help young Germans. But will millennials and Gen Z get to enjoy similar pensions at least? Well, it's not very likely. The current system only works for boomers because their parents had more children and died younger, and because Germany was booming and the problem escalated slowly. Young people today don't have all of that. Okay, that's depressing, but at least the young can take care of their own retirement and save money, right?
No.
Well, many sure would like to, but taxes and contributions are about 40% of salaries for the average worker and almost 50% in the highest tax brackets, one of the highest in the world. Together with the rising cost of living and sluggish wage growth, this makes it especially hard for young and middle-aged Germans to generate savings for their own retirements.
Denmark comes in. Have you heard of 55%? That's what I got on my tax sheet last year. I have no words.
One of the best investments, wealth generators and places of comfort and security is owning your own place. But due to a mix of NIMBYs preventing new development, increasing mountains of new regulations making building more expensive, and millions of people immigrating to Germany in the last few decades, the housing supply is deeply behind demand. Renting and buying real estate in metropolitan areas where young people actually want to live is so expensive today that even couples with a dual income and good jobs have a really hard time affording it. The generational contract in Germany is broken. And yet, some media voices continue to frame all this as a failure of young people's financial habits. The reality is complicated.
And this is why I actually would like to go on a bit of a rant while the advertisement is playing there. And as always, naturally, feel free to skip to the given timestamp somewhere here on the screen if you don't care for that. But as always, and as mentioned here in the video, I believe that this ends with how we have the social contract. We ought to distribute the wealth so that it is properly incentivizing people to participate in the system that we have. Because contrary to people's belief, young people want to start families. They want to work. They actually want to have kids.
Let's go!
And I know that this is mostly like anecdotal on my part, but if I look at my friend groups, and I pick out like 10 of those who are in relationship at the moment, 8 of them are expecting. And no, I know this does not directly indicate that we are going to be moving beyond the 1.5 figure that we all are dreading. Maybe not yet, but at least it shows the willingness.
Mind the wind!
The government and
Mind your step!
serious conversation about how much this is going to hurt us all, because we will, and how we are going to and people sound like some crazy comment. I think that this has to do with the most wealthy. And my thought is this, okay? Try to follow along. People ought to be able to work as they see fit and make their money as they want. That being said, I think that once you start as a person or really as a business, start making so much money that the owner of a given business can live a multitude of generations without worries, that if you can't quite like make the moral argument that causes a person to make that redistribution to, for example, I don't know, the betterment of its workers' condition or society at large, that the government should then step in with laws. Think of the Gilded Age. Individuals like John Rockefeller or Carnegie. They did their fair share of philanthropy, something that an author by the name of Alfini in his book As God Amongst Men, A History of the Rich in the West, actually attributes to the moral sentiment that the rich had back then. That wealth at the time was less mobile. Businesses were actually tied to nationality, so they will make their surrounding feel nice. They will invest in schools, library, museum, and to make things around them feel a little bit better. Like I watched this anime with my daughter the other day called Love Through a Prison that kind of showed how the philanthropic individuals of London in the 1910s used to do it. I know it's an anime reference, but that's how my brain works. And like, yes, I know that there's a caveat with this, right? Doing philanthropy was a good thing. You had the likes of Rockefeller, who supported black colleges and churches that were struggling after the Civil War. Carnegie would build libraries and railroads. Something that, of course, will help the most disenfranchised people to earn/build what little wealth they could. But the caveat here is, of course, that they did all of these things while presiding over such things as the 1892 Homestead Act, where the plant manager for Carnegie, as an example, hired 300 armed guards. So to break down the unions who were protesting the wage cuts of that year. They were fucking bloody, and people were killed just because they wanted to earn fair wages. This is not to say that their charitable acts were not good. They were, but these contributions were but a footnote. Not just in their wealth, but compared to the treatment of the workers, the people who actually made their businesses to what they were, it was nothing. They had a history of poor pay, deadly work, and ruthlessness over their industries. And this might already sound familiar to some of you, because it should. they already had that connotation that we're giving to some of the big tech heads of today, robber barons, right? Which was an analogy to, let's say, the feudal lords of Germany who forcibly charged tolls on travelers passing through their land. And listen, this was not just a German exclusive thing, okay? I live in Denmark. Literally here in Elsinore, we we still have this place called Tollkammer, and you should just focus on the toll part of that word, which is the important part because we literally used the cannons from Kronborg Castle to sink ships that did not pay entry fees. Yeah, entry fees for just sailing across the ocean. But like, in spite of their acts, the robber barons of back then still did set a precedent of having the operation act, not to be miserly and know when you've had enough to share some of it and give it away. Like I said, the reason why I'm using the US here as an example is that, like, while the early 1900s sees most of Europe being absolutely destroyed because of war, the US was having a wonderful time, right? The roaring 20s that was filled with overconsumption, stock market exploding, manufacturing off the wazoo, giving so much wealth that the US obviously was so very ready to contribute to the war because they had hella money. But then you entered like 1928, the stock market crash, with 1 year of laissez-faire capitalism alone making it so that the employment rate of Americans rose up to 25%. This mentality of like buy now and pay later that was introduced in like 1910 makes it so that so many people who took loans back then are now unable to pay them back. The US was fought, which is then where, as they saw things collapsing, that you had a leader that I guess some will consider to be a fucking commie by today's standards, FDR, who introduced the New Deal, a reform that was introduced so to reduce poverty and fight the depression at the time, and even protect children and the elderly. Guess what? Through that, we no longer had child labor in the United States, in a time where about 1 out of every 5 child had a job. And back then, again, the commie talking point, right? They raised the highest income tax on the highest earner to 94%. The idea was to rebuild, to sacrifice, and to make sure that this one would be shared. This sacrifice would be shared amongst everybody, and to ensure that no one would accumulate wealth unchecked. Now, the reason as to why I'm going to such lengths to kind of explain these things to you is that boomers, who I know get a lot of shit and sometimes deservingly so, because some of them don't quite seem to understand that they had opportunities that we just don't have, had these opportunities because they grew up in a world that was quite literally on the brink of collapse as well. It was built on planned economy, something that economists back then and still today called the Great Compression, as the gap between the rich, middle, and poor was, well, compressed to its lowest point ever. And it gave birth to the American middle class as we know it. You know, the not-so-fantastic depiction of the stay-at-home mom with 2 or 3 children, father working that 9 to 5, and them living in their homes, which owned, by the way, because their parents may have been amongst the 40% of Americans who owned their homes in the 1940s, whereas they, in the 1970s, were part of the 65% that did. Also, comparatively to the figure that was shown about Germany in the start of the video, right, that almost 2% or 2 children per family figure that was given, America at the time in the 1970s had a 2.5 figure. Now, that of course sounds super great, yet still at the time there was a price to pay for that expansion. For some Americans, for example, it was the institutionalized racism. Even when segregation was made illegal, black neighborhoods were being bulldozed, destroyed, absolutely flattened to make space for new highways. The one thing that literally allows most people to easily accumulate wealth, which is housing, was taken away from them. And a lot of good things that came out from actually having family was, of course, a thing that counted for straight couples. Homosexuality was illegal. Even those in then straight relationship had their challenges. Men could only establish themselves in given fields, and women had the societal expectation of being submissive and staying at home, and this in spite of them getting the right to vote about 15 years prior to this. Which remains the most wild thing to me, that we've barely gotten past 100 years since our moms and sisters and or women just as a whole could have voted. It's bloody insane. They couldn't have credit cards, so they had even less of a say so when it came to
Mind the wind.
standpoint of a household, or their own. That being when they were being shamed, being single, or having children. Oh, and by the way, did I mention how polluted the world, mostly the Western world, was back then? How so many places were covered with smog and people were dying of so many issues.
Los Angeles smog has always intrigued the amateur inventor. One of the first suggestions, and it is constantly being repeated, is that giant fans be mounted on the rim of the basin. Fans that would blow the pollution away. Unfortunately, there isn't enough electrical energy in the world to propel those fans, and if there were, the concentrated smog that they would push out would kill every living thing in its path.
Which, as a direct result, the adults
Sure feels
will
good to get
pass
away
on
from
to
my
their
desk.
children, and then
Now,
to
where's a
theirs
good spot for a
health
nap?
issues that have resulted in, for example, speaking just as a man, for the man of this country, over 20% of men have reduced sperm quality. Which, for some reasons, of course, why not, has women undergo fertility procedures such as ovarian stimulation, egg retrieval, IVF, because while men contribute to 40 to 50% of the fertility cases, right, the treatments that bypass the sperm defect directly involve women's reproductive system to ensure fertilization, so it goes to the women to make it easier. So like, even if men and women want to have children, about 20% of them may not be able to, which is why we now have our states trying to subsidize fertility procedures, making so that if you want to have number 2, the state is going to be sponsoring that. So like, I know I'm ranting a lot here, but I'm just kind of trying to make you understand that it's not just the easy thing of just pop out babies. It's about having a serious conversation about those at the top that affects all of us, and how they should behave, how the government should step in, and how they should incentivize people to create and keep families, and also respect the personal choices that people have. It's a harsh conversation, and I hope that politicians around the world will strive at least to try to have it with us. On to the rest of the video.
Young Germans are condemned to pay off a huge loan on the future that the older generations have generously granted themselves. And they don't have the power to change this by voting, because German parties just have no incentive to help young people. Demographic decline in a democracy is a feedback loop. When seniors are the largest group of voters, politicians make politics for them. This leaves young Germans facing a hard time building wealth or getting their own homes, which makes them even less willing to start families and have children, even if they want to. All of which is making the demographic crash worse. Germany has become a society that works for the old and relies on the young, making it really hard to create new young people. Baby boomers' lives are affected too. With unsustainable pension funds, inevitably millions of older Germans will have to work much longer than they thought. A retirement age of 70 or higher is already being discussed.
Which is to say something is affecting everybody. I got to see, and I don't know for what reason, I always say this, like, I am so fucking lucky to be in the position that I am, that I have a degree. So, to a certain degree, wow, I did not mean to make it redundant, but I could potentially apply for a job where I not to be set aside because of fucking AI, but we'll see how that turns out. But like, I feel lucky whenever it is that I go out shopping just for groceries and I see an elderly person behind the counter, and I just think to myself, shit, what happened? Like, that's literally the first sentiment that crosses my mind. And it should be fine, okay? Like, I understand there's some that actually do it for just the sake of working. There are some people who actually sign up for new jobs because they're alone. But I think that those people are like in the minority, and the vast majority of those who have to
Weapons
apply
need
for a job
regular
at,
maintenance.
Like, just
Take good
a
care of-
grocery store do it just because they can't afford living. And like, while I'm glad that this is something that I did in my 20s to make me understand the value of money and all that shiz, but it infuriates me. And I see this scenario here of an elderly person collecting pant, so to recycle bottles, more often than I used to when I was younger.
Percent of German pensioners live in poverty, and that rate is all but guaranteed to increase significantly in the 2030s. Still, seniors and boomers in total own the vast majority of Germany's wealth. Germans are even arguing about to what extent the costs of social systems have gotten out of hand. Even in a high-tax country like Germany, there's plenty of wealth disparity and opportunities to tax the rich and take pressure off workers. Although, of course, the details are fiercely debated, so we'll not get into this right now.
Yep, and that's the thing when I talked about this thing about the feudal lords of back then. This moral incentive, there's always this talking point of, hey, but if we tax them too much, they're going to leave.
And leave.
They'll go to fucking Saudi Arabia and do what? Drown. Every business in the world is kind of figuring out right now that they need to diversify their portfolio. Even Saudi Arabia is like buying up gaming companies because they know that the oil is eventually going to dry up, and the conversion now to electric, to more renewable sources, is going to oust them out of that field. And this is why we say that this conversation is very uncomfortable to have, because I don't want to tell businesses how they should be handling their money. But one thing is to know how they handle their money. But when they start getting, let's say, government subsidies, and like some of the networks come from that, I think to myself, like, why is this allowed? What the fuck do they get to just leave when it is that the government has spent so much money on them? And yeah, I know this is but one of the many examples. It's a whole umbrella term that we could be talking about for literally hours or days, but yeah, it sucks.
But the scale of the gap between what workers pay and what's needed to cover boomers' pensions is so enormous that even raising taxes would only buy a bit of time. And beyond pensions, the welfare and healthcare systems Germans rely upon may become unaffordable in the 2030s. The vast majority of healthcare costs occur during the last quarter of your life. So just as the healthcare workforce is shrinking due to demographics, the numbers of patients will explode. The waiting time for a specialist doctor is already months in the state healthcare system. Okay, but what about immigration? Whatever your opinion.
That's not gonna fix it. That's gonna fix it. Never. Why? Because I know that people have their opinions about this matter, but immigrants actually do assimilate. And one of the greatest ways that you can see it in is that they actually don't have as many kids. It takes like 1 or 2 generations and they do the same thing. My mom was raised in a family of 9. She was like, 1 more kid, that's enough. And she had my sister, and that was it.
Opinion on immigration is pro or against, please put it in a box and ignore it for a moment. We only want to look at it from one perspective. Can it solve the population crash?
No.
Let's look at the population again. If a country's pyramid looks like this and you want to stabilize it at the bottom, immigration won't do that. For one, it doesn't actually make your country that much younger. In Germany, the birth rate of most of its immigrants isn't higher than the locals. And if new immigrants have more children, they tend to adjust to the rest of the population within 2 generations.
Yeah.
Sure, immigration over the last few decades has delayed the coming crash, and in the transition period will run into serious worker shortfalls, especially in healthcare and nursing.
Is it another Paimon?
Yep. How many of those workers are not have an immigrant background? Literally, my mom, who had to take her degree again as a, she was on her way to become a doctor. She had to start all the way back to then become a nurse. Her classes were like 90% immigrant. That's what they were.
Zero immigration doesn't seem wise or feasible. But there's a problem. If birth rates stay as low as they are, or go down even more, then the German population will continue to shrink.
Victory is almost ours.
And to keep it stable, it would
Paimon's
constantly need to be
stomach is
replenished by new
rumbling
immigrants.
already.
until they age and themselves need new immigrants to pay for their retirement.
Yeah.
No matter if you think this is a good idea or not, it's not actually possible. Birth rates are crashing everywhere.
Everywhere.
Eventually, immigration around the world will slow down massively. The world is running out of young people. So immigration can delay the issue a bit and ease the consequences, but that's it. Germany either has to solve its demographic crash or its welfare state and pension systems will break. Conclusion and opinion part. So how over is Germany? The demographic crisis is the greatest danger to German living standards and social cohesion. And the same crisis is unfolding in all Western countries.
You got it!
Things are about to escalate
What
in
is it?
Germany,
What is it?
Italy, France,
Is it
and
another
Poland.
Paimon?
But the same issues are also on the horizon in the US, Argentina, or Canada. The reality nobody wants to talk about is that solving the demographic crisis will be very painful. It will require sacrifices from everyone, and politicians seem incapable of addressing it honestly. But to solve the demographic crisis for real, something no nation has done successfully so far might mean doing things that are intensely unpopular with older voters. Instead of spending 25% of Germany's entire budget on the elderly, especially the wealthiest among them, we could invest more of it in families, paying for housing and childcare, and making it an amazing deal to have a big family.
Incentivize young people to start fucking building a family. Yes, of course. Make it so that more young people want to get into blue-collar fields. Like, I know, I get confused every single time. Every single fucking time that I am in the locker room at the gym, people seem to think that I am, like I work in masonry or something because of my hands and my build, right? But like, no, I put on my fashionable accoutrement, I wear a fucking ring on my hand, and people immediately understand, okay, no, this is a completely different guy, kind of guy. But guess what? We are lucky, okay? We get to live close to a farm and raise our child and future children there. We have a garden where we can harvest some stuff during spring and summer. And yeah, of course, some people want to live in a big city, but still, the point is to make it attractive for young people to do so. But you don't do that when you constantly just focus on the elderly.
More than anything, our attitude to kids and families needs to change. Demographics move slowly, but then unstoppably. The next few decades will be rough, but our societies can decide just how rough, and what kind of societies will emerge on the other side.
Steady now. It's the... Wow, Paimon's stomach is rumbling already.
Making this video was hell. We wrote the first draft in the winter of 2023. We killed this script again and again, only to be annoyed and start fresh. This topic is complex, and people angrily disagree about it, so presenting the information in a way that was nuanced, but also not so much the lost or point, was incredibly hard.
Whoa,
Especially as
nice catch.
Germans, it was a real challenge stepping outside the narratives we grew up with. We had countless discussions inside our team and with our experts, arguing passionately over individual sentences, facts to delete or add in. We reworked, re-researched, and redrew large parts of it again and again. What you watch today is only the tip of the iceberg, and you need to judge if we did a good job. To be frank, projects like this are horrible financial decisions, but we think it's important that we do them from time to time. And we literally can only afford to do this because of your direct support. So, if you think what we're doing is of value, and you want to enable more in the future, the best way of doing so is to get one of our passion projects or limited editions from our shop. One of our personal favorites are our science posters.
Watch out for when
I
Kikuku
thought
shakes
for a
off
moment
his
that they were
feathers,
going to
or
be
you'll...
advertising like a Patreon kind of thing where you can see behind the scene, because that would generally be very valuable to me. I want to be able to make more informative content, like I kind of already do, and I appreciate most of you who appreciate what I add to videos during my reactions, but again, it's still reliant on the work of others.
Whoa,
if you get
nice
my drift. And while I understand that some of you just enjoy listening to my voice whenever I'm ranting, I would love to be able to add
You've
more
got it.
stuff visually. That of course takes
Nice
time, but
catch.
I kind of need some inspiration to know how to start. And I just really like the style that Kurt Kazat has. It feels simplistic, although it is very complex. But alas,
What is it?
this
What
was
is it?
my
Is it
reaction
another
to Germany. for which, oh god, much like the Germans, it turned out to be more substantial than I thought it was going to be, but that's the nature of what I do here. If you got something out of this, please don't forget to give the video a like. It lets YouTube know that you like my content, and of course, I wish you all to have a wonderful day. Stay awesome, and I'll see you guys in the next one.
You've got it! You got it! Wow, Paimon's stomach is rumbling already!
Oh, mal schauen, ne? Was jetzt? Jetzt? Oder schaue ich eher rein? Das Video habe ich gerade erst geguckt. Ich nehme das. Oh, besser. Cool.
Wir haben heute den 7.5.2026. Es ist 17:37 Uhr mitteleuropäischer Sommerzeit und heute ist der dritte Tag nach dem gewaltvollen Anschlag in Leipzig. Meine Solidarität geht immer noch raus an die Betroffenen und die Opfer natürlich ganz besonders. Und ich kann euch sagen, mit dem dritten Tag nach dem verheerenden Vorfall in Leipzig sind jegliche Berichterstattung aus allen Nachrichten verschwunden. Und ich möchte bewusst darauf aufmerksam machen, weil ich es nicht verstehen kann, dass nicht weiter darüber gesprochen wird, weil die Problematik, die in Leipzig zu diesem katastrophalen Ereignis geführt hat, ist tatsächlich nicht irgendein Ausländer, sondern jemand, der halt in Deutschland geboren ist und in Deutschland in Leipzig gelebt hat und der halt mit Mental Health Problemen zu tun hatte, extremen Problemen zu tun hatte, der auch selbst in der psychiatrischen Behandlung war, dann aber nicht mehr. Und das sollte uns ein Warnsignal sein, dass die geistige Gesundheit und Mental Health mehr in den Vordergrund gesteckt werden sollte und weniger abgebaut. Ich wollte euch da nochmal darauf aufmerksam machen, aus den großen deutschlandweiten Nachrichten ist es verschwunden. Es ist einfach gut. Das ist schlecht, natürlich. Ich bin mir ziemlich sicher, und das möchte ich ganz bewusst sagen, ich bin mir ziemlich sicher, wenn bei der Identitätsprüfung der Person, des Täters, des mutmaßlichen Täters, eine andere Nationalität herausgekommen wäre, würden wir nicht darüber reden. Vielen Dank. Ja. Gut, dann gucken wir jetzt aber in die Nachrichten. Wir gucken jetzt in die Nachrichten und ich starte mit einem Blick auf die Homepage. Denn ihr könnt selber gerne bei meinungsmacher.de vorbeischauen. Und wie ihr sehen könnt, sind heute 2 Meinungsmacher-Originale rausgekommen. Wir haben einmal ein Meinungsmacher-Original, das blickt nach Schottland. Und wir haben ein Meinungsmacher-Original, da freue ich mich sehr drauf. Das ist der erste Artikel, den wir gleich durchschauen. Nämlich da geht es um 2 Handelsstraßen, die extrem bedeutungsvoll für den Welthandel sind. Sowohl Mara als auch Paul haben nämlich 2 fantastische Artikel für euch geschrieben. Die könnt ihr selber nochmal nachlesen. Ich habe sie jetzt hier aber auf jeden Fall zum Vorlesen da. Das könnt ihr dann später auch bei Meinungsmacher auf YouTube nachschauen. Wir starten jetzt erstmal mit dem ersten Artikel. Und der erste Artikel, der kommt von Paul. Und da geht es um Handelsstraßen. Ihr seid aktuell sicherlich euch darüber im Klaren, dass ihr von einer großen Konfliktsituation bezüglich einer Handelsstraße betroffen seid. Wir reden ja hier immer mal darüber, nämlich die Straße von Hormuz. Deswegen wird der Sprit teuer, deswegen gibt es wenig Düngemittel, Helium wird nicht so gut geliefert. Die Straße von Hormuz ist ein großes Problem, deswegen ist alles gerade so angespannt. Aber es gibt noch deutlich mehr enge Punkte von handelstechnisch besonderer Wichtigkeit. Nicht so betrachtet werden, wo es aber auch extrem viele Anspannungen gibt. Und das würde ich gerne mal vorlesen mit diesem Artikel, den hier Paul geschrieben hat. 2 Straßen und ihre Bedeutung für den Welthandel. Der Welthandel entscheidet sich nicht nur auf den Weltmeeren, sondern auch an wenigen oft übersehenen Landverbindungen, die über Abhängigkeiten, Risiken und wirtschaftlichen Spielräumen ganzer Nationen bestimmen können. 2 dieser Routen zeigen exemplarisch, wie unterschiedlich ihre tatsächliche Bedeutung ausfällt. Die Verbindung zwischen Afghanistan und China sowie die Nord-Süd-Achse auf dem amerikanischen Kontinent. Beide gelten als strategisch relevant,
Paimon's stomach is rumbling already.
Kaum eine Rolle spielt, funktioniert die andere trotz struktureller Lücken vergleichsweise stabil. Ausschlaggebend ist nicht allein die geografische Lage, sondern die konkrete Nutzbarkeit und Einbindung ihrer bestehenden wirtschaftlichen
Victory is almost ours!
Struktur. Die Verbindung zwischen Afghanistan und
What is
China
it?
verläuft
What is
durch
it?
den
Is it another Paimon?
Dieser schmale Streifen zieht sich im abgelegenen Ort Nordosten Afghanistans zwischen hohen Gebirgen bis an die chinesische Grenze. Auf einer Landkarte wirkt das zwar wie ein
What
direkter
is it?
Zugang,
What
in
is
der
it?
Realität ist die
Is it
Region
another Paimon?
extrem schwer zugänglich. Stabile Gebirgsketten, enge Täler, unbefestigte Wege und extreme Wetterbedingungen bestimmen die Kulisse.
You've got it!
Im
You got
Winter
it!
sind weite Teile der Landschaft
That was a
unpassierbar.
tough fight!
Im Sommer erschweren Regen und Erdrutsche den Transport. Infrastruktur ist kaum vorhanden. Es fehlen durchgehende Straßen, Brücken,
Victory is
Grenzstationen
almost
und
ours.
touristische Einrichtungen.
Wow!
Transporte sind
Nice
unter diesen
catch!
Bedingungen langsam, teuer und vor allem unsicher. Hinzu kommt die labile politische Situation im Land. Afghanistan ist seit Jahrzehnten von Instabilität geprägt. In vielen Regionen fehlt eine verlässlich staatliche Kontrolle, was für Unternehmen ein hohes Risiko bedeutet. Investitionen im Straßenbau oder Logistik lohnen sich unter solchen Bedingungen kaum, weil langfristige Planungen nicht möglich sind. Auch klare Handelsregeln sind oft schwer durchsetzbar oder fehlen ganz. Das führt dazu, dass selbst einfache Transporte mit hohen bürokratischen und organisatorischen Hürden verbunden sind. Der Balkankorridor zeigt damit ein grundlegendes Problem. Eine Route kann geografisch sinnvoll erscheinen, bleibt aber bedeutungslos, wenn die Rahmenbedingungen für Handel nicht stimmen. Um zu verstehen, warum solche Verbindungen und deren Aufbau trotzdem immer wieder diskutiert werden, muss man einen Blick auf den globalen Handel werfen. Der größte Teil des Welthandels läuft nämlich über Seewege. Schiffe können große Mengen an Waren günstig transportieren. Dabei konzentriert sich der Verkehr auf einige wenige zentrale Engstellen. Und diese Engstellen, die kennt ihr jetzt beispielsweise mit der Straße von Hormuz. Ja? Also das ist eine dieser Engstellen. Es gibt aber eine weitere, wichtige und eins der wichtigsten
So
Nadelöhre.
close, so
Das
close!
habt ihr vielleicht auch schon in den Nachrichten gesehen. Ich hab
Wow,
gestern dazu einen
Paimon's stomach
Tagesschau-Artikel
is
gesehen.
rumbling
Ich habe mir das aber
already!
gespart, weil heute dieser Artikel kommt, ich wusste das schon, ist die Straße von Malakka in Südostasien. Je nach Schätzung fließen zwischen 25 und 40%
Victory is almost
des
ours.
gesamten globalen
Look at
Seehandels
that! Quick,
durch
let's go
diese
show it off!
Meere, was ihre zentrale Rolle im internationalen Warenverkehr verdeutlicht. Ein großer Teil des chinesischen Handels, vor allem Energieimporte wie Öl,
So close, so
passieren diese
close!
Route und schaffen damit eine strukturelle
Wow, Paimon's
Abhängigkeit
stomach
von
is
einem
rumbling
einzelnen
already!
geografischen Engpass. Ja, die Straße von Malakka. So heißt sie. Tatsächlich ist vielen gar nicht bekannt, aber eine der wichtigsten Handelspassagen, die es gibt. Wenn dieser Weg
Yeah,
gestört
you nearly
etwa
got
durch
it!
Konflikte, Blockaden oder
That
sicherheitspolitische
was a
Spannungen,
tough fight!
hat das unmittelbare Auswirkungen auf die globale Lieferkette sowie auf wirtschaftliche Stabilität und Versorgung ganzer Regionen. Gleichzeitig wird die strategische Bedeutung der Region auch politisch sichtbar. Aktuell ist dort eine verstärkte Präsenz internationaler Marineeinheiten zu beobachten. Darunter auch Patrouillen der US-Navy, was die sicherheitspolitische Sensibilität dieser Route unterstreicht. Zudem gibt es Überlegungen einzelner Anrainer-Staaten wie Indonesien oder Anrainerstaaten, Indonesien durch mögliche Gebührenmodelle stärker von der Nutzung dieser Meerenge zu profitieren, weil Indonesien direkt darin ist, was zusätzliche wirtschaftliche und politische Spannungen erzeugen könnte. China versucht deshalb konstant alternative Routen zu entwickeln. Landverbindungen sind zwar meist langsamer und teurer als Seewege, bieten aber strategische Vorteile. Sie sind schwerer zu blockieren und ermöglichen mehr Kontrolle über den Transport. Der Balkankorridor wäre theoretisch ein guter Kandidat für diese Strategie,
Victory is
da er eine
almost
direkte
ours.
Verbindung nach Zentralasien schaffen
Time
könnte.
to
In der
celebrate!
Praxis verhindern jedoch die genannten Faktoren vom Anfang eine Umsetzung. Ohne Infrastruktur, ohne Sicherheit und klare Regeln bleibt diese
Yeah,
Route eine theoretische Option.
What is it? What
Auf
is
dem
it?
amerikanischen
Is it
Kontinent
another
zeigt sich
Paimon?
eine andere Situation. Die Panamericana bildet ein fast durchgehendes Straßennetz von Alaska bis nach Südamerika. Viele Abschnitte sind gut ausgebaut und werden täglich genutzt. Ihr habt vielleicht schon mal eine Dokumentation zu diesen Straßen nach Alaska gesehen. Da gibt es reihenweise Dokumentationen, die auch solche Handelsstraßen
Victory is
verfolgen.
almost out!
Die längste
Wow,
Handelsstraße bis nach
Paimon's
Alaska.
stomach
Gibt's
is
schon,
rumbling already!
Wie läuft denn das auf irgendwelchen Männerkanälen? Viele Abschnitte sind gut ausgebaut und werden täglich genutzt. Also Lastwagen transportieren Waren über lange Strecken. Städte und Wirtschaftsräume sind miteinander verbunden. Es gibt jedoch eine entscheidende Lücke im Netz, den Darien Gap zwischen Panama und Kolumbien. An dieser
Wow,
Stelle
Paimon's
fehlt nicht einfach
stomach
nur
is
eine
rumbling
Straße.
already!
Der Darien Gap ist ein fast unmöglich kontrollierbarer Raum. Dichter Dschungel, sumpfiges Gelände, fehlende Infrastruktur machen das Gebiet technisch schwer erschließbar.
You nearly got...
Gleichzeitig ist die
Wow,
Sicherheitslage
Paimon's
komplex.
stomach is
Bewaffnete Gruppen,
rumbling
kriminelle
already!
Netzwerke und Schmuggelstrukturen sind dort aktiv. Teile der Region entziehen sich jeglicher staatlicher Kontrolle. Hinzu kommt, dass viele Migranten versuchen, die knapp
Steady now,
100
it's the
Kilometer
fun-
Regenwald zu durchqueren.
Wow,
Oft
nice
unter
catch!
lebensgefährlichen Bedingungen. Für den Bau einer Straße bedeutet das nicht nur extreme technische Herausforderungen, sondern auch erhebliche politische und sicherheitstechnische Risiken. Trotz dieser Lücke funktioniert der Handel zwischen Nord- und Südamerika vergleichsweise gut. Denn er ist nicht nur von dieser einen Landverbindung abhängig. Ein großer Teil der Waren wird über den See transportiert. Das ist bei großen Entfernungen effizienter und oft günstiger.
I thought the war was
Zwischen
over.
benachbarten Ländern oder innerhalb einzelner Wirtschaften. Ein weiterer wichtiger Faktor sind bestehende Handelsabkommen. In Nordamerika sorgt das United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, kurz USMCA, dafür, dass der Handel zwischen den beteiligten Ländern weitestgehend reibungslos abläuft. Zölle werden reduziert, Regeln vereinheitlicht und Abläufe vereinfacht. In Südamerika übernimmt das Mercosur-Abkommen eine ähnliche Funktion, das zusätzlich
You've got it!
zahlreiche
You got it!
bilaterale Handelsabsprachen
What is it? What is it?
Diese schaffen
Is it another
klare
Paimon?
Rahmenbedingungen und machen den Handel planbar, wodurch Waren auch dann effizient fließen können, wenn einzelne Infrastrukturprojekte
Victory is almost ours!
In Afghanistan verhindert
What
die
is it?
Kombination
What is
aus
it?
unwirtlicher
Is it another
Natur
Paimon?
und politischer Instabilität fehlende wirtschaftliche Einbindung in jede praktische Nutzung der Route. Im Fall Amerikas wird die existierende Lücke im Transportnetzwerk durch
You've
funktionierende
got it!
Strukturen
You got
ausgeglichen. Infrastrukturpolitik
that was a
und
tough
wirtschaftliche
fight.
Kooperationen greifen dort ineinander. Eine Route, die auf der Landkarte wie ein sinnvoller Handelsweg aussieht, der so aussehen mag, wird erst dann bedeutsam für den Welthandel, wenn mehrere Bedingungen gleichzeitig erfüllt sind. Verlässliche Infrastruktur, stabile politische Verhältnisse,
So
klare
close, so
Handelsregeln und wirtschaftliche Zusammenarbeit.
That was a tough
Einer
fight!
dieser Faktoren bleibt selbst die beste geografische Lage für Handelsverbindungen derzeit bedeutungslos. Das ist ein exklusiver Einblick, um mal so ein bisschen
Victory is almost ours! What is it? What is it? Is it another Paimon?
Ganz besonders diese Straße von Malakka in Südostasien hervorheben, weil das zum jetzigen Zeitpunkt ein Punkt von Spannung ist. Amerikas Marine und Navy-Einheiten haben schon eine erhöhte Präsenz in diesem Raum. Und da das an Indonesien angrenzt und Amerika mit Indonesien gute Beziehungen hat, gibt es da auch schon Gespräche bezüglich eines, na sagen wir mal, primären Luftraumstandorts. Also Amerika will da mehr Präsenz haben, weil diese Route eine Arterie Chinas ist. Und nicht nur Chinas, sondern eben eine Handelsarterie der Welt. Gerne, guckt euch gerne dazu nochmal neben dem Meinungsmacher-Artikel, den wir hier haben, weil das ein exklusiver Meinungsmacher-Artikel ist, auf Meinungsmacher das an oder schaut in die Tagesschau, da wurde das gestern auch thematisiert.
Yeah,
Das
you nearly...
kommt von Meinungsmacher sehr, sehr
Wow,
interessant.
Paimon's
Sehr,
stomach
sehr,
is
sehr
rumbling
interessant. Den
already!
ersten Artikel würde ich hier kurz mal ablegen. Welche Produkte laufen da durch? Zwischen 25 und 40% des gesamten Welthandels. Abhängig davon, zu welchem Zeitpunkt. Also bis zu 40% des gesamten Welthandels.
Beide.
Durch die Straße von Malakka.
Ja, da
Alles. Also, wenn der Handel ein globaler Kuchen ist, dann kann man fast sagen, fast die Hälfte geht durch die Straße von Malakka. Das ist sehr, ist unglaublich. Ist unglaublich, wie viel das ist. Dann gucken wir mal oder bleiben wir im asiatischen Raum.
You've got it! You got it!
Ein bisschen versetzt.
Wow, Paimon's stomach is rumbling already!
Die Eisdecke unter Wladimir Putin bekommt Risse. 4 Jahre Krieg trug sie, jetzt knackt es. Selbst
Victory is
regierungsnahe
almost out!
staatliche Meinungsforschung.
What is it? What is it? Is it another Paimon?
Die Zustimmung für die Arbeit des russischen Präsidenten sinkt. Das Staatsnahe Institut FOM misst Anfang Mai zwar immer noch 73% Zuspruch für die Arbeit des Präsidenten.
You nearly
Das
got
ist
him!
total witzig.
Whew, that was a tough fight!
Du hast doch bestimmt kein Problem mit dem Präsidenten Wladimir Putin, oder? Oder? Und es sind nur 73%. Okay? Jedoch ist das der tiefste Wert seit Beginn der Vollinvasion gegen die Ukraine. Obwohl solche Daten in Russland mit Vorsicht zu genießen sind, da Befragte nicht völlig frei antworten können, bleibt der momentane Abwärtstrend bemerkenswert. Videos in sozialen Netzwerken von wütenden und frustrierten Russen und Russinnen scheinen diese Tendenz zu bestätigen. Sie regen sich reichweitenarg über die hohen Preise im Supermarkt auf oder teilen ironische Videos von Spaziergängen, Straßen voller Schlagslöcher, Müll und fetten Ratten. Dazu der Text. Wer braucht schon Internet bei der Nachbarschaft? Es ist eine Anspielung auf die Russland höchst unpopuläre Einschränkung des Internets in den vergangenen Monaten. Immer wieder geht es im Netz ums Geld, denn Verbraucher müssen beim Einkauf tiefer in die Tasche greifen, oft für weniger als zuvor. Denn zum Jahreswechsel wurde die Mehrwertsteuer von 20 auf 22% angehoben. Für einige Güter wie Kinderkleidung, Grundnahrungsmittel oder Arzneimittel gilt ein verminderter Satz von 10%. Putin selbst räumte Mitte April ein bei einem Treffen mit Industriellen. Zitat, das Bruttoinlandsprodukt im Januar und Februar diesen Jahres ist um 1,8% geschrumpft. Seine Erklärung lautet, Kalender, Wetter, Saison. Seine Erklärung war, Kalender, Wetter und Saisonfaktoren haben Einfluss gehabt.
Steady now! It's
Welche es sein sollen, sagte nicht.
What is it? What is it? Is it another Paimon?
Darüber schweigt der Präsident. Dafür verlangt der Machthaber Vorschläge von Regierungen und Zentralbanken, wie mehr Wachstum erzeugt werden könnte.
So close, so close! Wow, Paimon's stomach is rumbling already!
Libara Liboniana hält an ihrer Wachstumsprognose von 0,5 bis 1,5% für 2026 fest. Räumt aber ein, dass Wirtschaftsentwicklung momentan verhalten sei. Damit die Prognose Wirklichkeit wird, hat die Zentralbank den Leitzins achtmal seit Oktober 2024 gesenkt. Von 21 auf 14,5%. Die Idee dahinter ist, sinkt der Leitzins, sinken auch Zinsen für Kredite, egal ob für Privatpersonen oder Unternehmen. Das soll den Konsum ankurbeln. Trotzdem haben laut einer Umfrage des regierungsnahen industriellen Verbands RSPP mehr als 80% der befragten Unternehmen ihre Investitionen. Hinzu kommt eine weitere Belastung, die direkt an die Einnahmequellen geht. Ukrainische Drohnen attackieren immer massiver die russische Exportinfrastruktur und erreichen mittlerweile Westsibirien und den Ural. Mehr als 2000 Kilometer von der Grenze entfernt greift die Ukraine russische Infrastruktur. Dieses Wochenende, das geht ab morgen, hat Russland einen einseitigen Waffenstillstand angekündigt. Und ich glaube, das wird das erste Mal sein, dass ich eventuell versuche, einen Livestream dieser russischen Parade zu sehen, weil ich es für möglich halte, dass dort die ukrainische Drohnen einschlagen. Also, ich halte es wirklich für möglich, dass diese russische Parade, dass da gewisse nicht russisch-militärische Aktionen geplant werden. Und deswegen werde ich mir das angucken. Also, ich muss mal schauen, wo man sich sowas anguckt, aber einschlagen nur eher nicht. Na doch. So, ich glaube schon. Ich glaube, es ist durchaus möglich, das ist auch der Grund, warum... Also das ist der Grund, aber es gibt auch einen Grund, warum ein aktuelles Militär aufgefahren wird. Ja, da sind alte Panzer und alte, kaum mehr bewegbare militärische Infrastruktur. Mal sehen. Ja? Hatte Putin die Parade nicht abgesagt? Hat er? Schade. Wir sehen, wir müssen mal gucken.
Stay cool!
Allein in der Woche zwischen dem 30. März und dem 5. April zum Beispiel waren es nach Auswertung der staatlichen Nachrichtenagentur RIA 1900 Drohnen, die über russischem Gebiet abgeschossen wurden. Die Ziele sind kein Zufall. Am 5. Mai meldet der Gouverneur der Region Leningrad, Hauptziel des nächsten Angriffs sei die Raffinerie bei St. Petersburg, eine der größten Raffinerien Russlands. Auch Tuapse am Schwarzen Meer und Ust-Luga an der Ostsee wurden in den vergangenen Wochen wiederholt getroffen. Kreml-Sprecher Dmitri Peskov warf der ukrainischen Führung vor, mit der Drohneneinschlägen auf Tuapse eine, Zitat, weitere Destabilisierung der weltweiten Energiemärkte zu provozieren. Gänzlich ignorierend, dass Russland den Krieg begonnen hatte und selbst permanent die ukrainische Energieinfrastruktur angreift. Die Wirtschaftspolitik kommt nicht nur bei den Bürgern schlecht an. Der Vorsitzende der kommunistischen Partei, KPRF, Gennady Zyganov, bezeichnet den Kurs während einer Parteisitzung als ruinös. Die Zinssätze würden die Wirtschaft erwürgen. Zyganov gilt formell zwar als Oppositioneller, die Kritik an der Regierungspolitik bleibt jedoch meist im Rahmen und scheint ja deutliche Worte zu finden. Das könnte aber auch mit der bevorstehenden Duma-Wahl im September zusammenhängen. Es geht also doch darum, Wähler zu mobilisieren. Doch auch aus der Industrie kommt Kritik, wie von Oleg Diri, Chef des Konzerns Basic Element, der unter anderem mit Öl und Aluminium handelt. Laut dem russischen Nachrichtenportal RBK soll der Oligarch Mitte Januar für eine Insolvenzwelle gewarnt haben. Dieses absolut primitive Experiment wird unrühmlich locken mit dem Bankrott tausender Firmen und Betriebe. Mit primitivem Experiment meint Deripaska laut RBK unter anderem die Zinspolitik der staatlichen Banken. Der kremlnahe TV-Moderator Wladimir Solojow, der für seine Extremkommentare in seiner wöchentlichen ausgestrahlten TV-Show gleichermaßen berühmt wie berüchtigt ist, schlägt Ende April einen drastischen Ton an. Kurz nachdem Tuapse und Ust-Luga gebrannt hatten, rät er, dass Russland seinen Rohstoffhandel umlenken solle, mehr Richtung China und Nordkorea, nicht in den Westen. Zitat: Brauchen wir überhaupt Geld im Gegenzug oder brauchen wir Technologien und Produkte? Klar, da ist Nordkorea die richtige Adresse. Für Technologien und Produkte. Safe. Zur Wahrheit gehört aber auch, Russland kassiert weiterhin Milliarden aus dem Öl- und Gasfeld. Unter anderem mit China und Indien, aber auch der Europäischen Union. Und die Gewinnmargen dürften seit der Hormuz-Blockade wieder gewachsen sein. Fest steht aber dennoch, dass die Staatskasse sich zu leeren scheint und sie dringend mehr Einnahmen und mehr Wachstum brauchen. Sonst würde die Regierung weder die Steuern anheben, noch den Weizen senken. Denn Krieg kostet Geld. Die Financial Times berichtet Ende März, Putin habe die Superreichen Russlands um Spenden für den Krieg gebeten. Der Kreml dementiert. Nicht Putin habe gebeten, sagte Sprecher Peskov, sondern ein Geschäftsmann habe von sich aus angeboten, eine große, sehr große Geldsumme für den Staat bereitzustellen. Er ist gekommen, hat gebeten, hat gegeben. Wladimir Putin war in einem festlich geschmückten Saal, sehr nah am Fenster und hat den Geschäftsmann willkommen geheißen und dann langsam das Fenster geöffnet und hat ihn angeblickt. Und dann haben sich aus irgendwelchen Gründen hat sich das Portemonnaie geöffnet. Schließlich hätten die russischen Unternehmen ihr Geld in den 1990er Jahren mit Hilfe des Staates gemacht. Daher sehen es viele nun als ihre Pflicht an, solche Beiträge zu leisten. So Peskov. Es ändert sich etwas im politischen und wirtschaftlichen Klima in Russland. Die Frage ist, wie lange der Kreml es schafft, dass niemand öffentlich die wirtschaftliche Lage auf den Krieg der Ukraine zurückführt. Saison, Wetter, Kalender. Ja, sicher. Daran wird's liegen. Daran wird's liegen. Es gibt einen weiteren Artikel, der kommt aus der Süddeutschen Zeitung, den ich heute nicht hier drin habe, weil der schon sehr detailliert militärisch ist, der darauf aufmerksam macht, dass die Ukraine besser dasteht als jeher im Krieg gegen Russland und versucht analytisch zu erklären, warum das so ist. Ja, wie sich das alles verändert hat. Und ein Hauptfaktor dieser ganzen Situation sind vor allem die unfassbaren Fleischwolf, den Russland allgemein oder das russische Militär mit seinen neuen Rekruten an der Front liegt. Da müssen in einer Frequenz Russen sterben, das ist unfassbar. Unfassbar. Könnt ihr euch gerne auch nochmal als Empfehlung durchlesen, das war aus der Süddeutschen Zeitung, ich weiß gar nicht, ob der hinter dem Paywall war. Aber ja, bitter, bitter. Und das nur, weil Putin ein verdammter Wahnsinniger ist. Das kommt aus der Tagesschau. Die Ukraine gewinnt hoffentlich. Aber von Gewinn kann man da noch nicht reden, ja. Es sind zumindest auch keine, es sind aber zumindest keine dramatischen Verluste. Gute Nachrichten aus der Europäischen Union. Ja. Die EU-Kommission erlaubt der Bundesregierung, Industrieunternehmen beim Umstieg auf klimafreundliche Verfahren finanziell zu unterstützen. Für die Förderung sind 5 Milliarden Euro vorgesehen. Die Zustimmung war notwendig, da in der EU strenge Regeln gelten, wenn ein Staat Unternehmen mit Geld verteilen unterstützen will. Grundlage sind sogenannte Kohlendioxid-Differenzverträge. Mit denen sollen über einen Zeitraum von 15 Jahren Mehrkosten ausgeglichen werden, die für Unternehmen durch den Einsatz klimafreundlicher Produktionsverfahren entstehen. Dabei können Firmen grundsätzlich frei entscheiden, wie sie ihre Produktionsprozesse modernisieren, heißt es auf der Internetseite des Bundeswirtschaftsministeriums. Es können beispielsweise Strom, CO2-armer Wasserstoff oder Biowasser eingesetzt werden. Auch Technologien zur Abscheidung und Speicherung von Kohlendioxid können genutzt werden. Mit der Förderung sind Auflagen für die Unternehmen verbunden. Binnen 4 Jahren müssen sie ihre CO2-Emissionen um mindestens 50% senken und bis zum Auslaufen des Vertrages, also nach 15 Jahren, müssen die Emissionen um mindestens 85% zurückgegangen sein. Die finanzielle Förderung zielt vor allem auf Unternehmen ab, die derzeit sehr viel CO2 ausstoßen, etwa im Bereich der Chemie- oder Metallindustrie. Die Bundesregierung erhofft sich mehr Planungssicherheit für die Konzerne und damit die Festigung der Wettbewerbsfähigkeit Deutschlands. Aus Sicht der Europäischen Unionskommission kann die Förderung Anreize für Unternehmen geben, die ohne staatliche Unterstützung eventuell nicht in saubere Produktionsprozesse investieren würden. Es trage dazu bei, die Energie- und Klimaziele sowie die Nachhaltigkeitsziele in Deutschland und der Europäischen Union zu verwirklichen. Also, grundsätzlich gilt, Subventionierung im Bereich